Alright guys, TwitchGrubber here again today, and this is a pre-recorded video because the time has finally come. You guys who have been on the channel a while may know that I'm starting work full-time later this week, in fact, or at least next Monday at Intel. So I'm moving down there today to get moved into the new place, and then hopefully tomorrow we'll have a video from there, and I'll have to get a new desk, and things are changing. So this is recorded the day before I'm going because I won't have the time to recap the Pro League in the morning because I'll be driving down to wherever I'm going to go. So yes, I thought I'd record this in advance because I think I can, and this is a very interesting topic. I'm sure you guys will be interested to see exactly what will happen over the next few months, because yesterday, as I talked about in yesterday's video, we got this announcement that Optic Gaming have the franchise spot in Los Angeles for the CDL 2020, which is what it's going to be called, the Call of Duty League. Now, of course, Optic Gaming are now owned by Immortals, who own Infinite Esports because they acquired them very recently, and Optic Gaming falls under that umbrella, and Hector made it very clear that this is not us, in terms of this is not our Optic Gaming, this is not the Optic Gaming family, this is not the same people involved as were involved back in the day. So, of course, this is a big deal. Now, we all know that Optic Gaming as a brand will be lost from the Los Angeles spot. It will be called the Los Angeles something or other. Immortals already own, I believe, the Los Angeles Valiant in Overwatch or something like that. So it'll be the Los Angeles something or other in Call of Duty. But yeah, let's get into it. So if you guys enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, we did talk about it yesterday, but I want to go into more detail today. Crimsix and Scump made it very clear that they are not particularly happy with how this is going. They've said in the past that they want to play under Hector's Optic, right? They don't want to play under these corporate guys that don't know what they're doing, that have made all these mistaken business decisions at Infinite, the Optic India stuff, and all these, awful situations. And of course, Embos and the content creators are stuck in limbo right now with exactly how it's going to go for them. Now, whether Hector will try and start up a new organization and maybe purchase a franchise spot, or even try and get back his players from the Optic Gaming team, is as yet unknown. But we'll have to see how it goes over coming months, because it's very likely, or at least pretty damn likely, I would say, that the players want out of Optic Gaming at the end of the season. Now, that may not be the biggest deal to you guys, because you may feel like, well, the Optic Gaming brand is already lost to Los Angeles, whatever it's going to be called, so does it really matter if they go to another organization? It would just be interesting if, for example, the Dallas team, the Envy team, decides to pick up the entire Optic roster, and then it's kind of like, at least technically they're not called Envy anymore, or technically they're not called Splice, or whatever organization the Optic guys may decide to go to, but it's still playing for not Optic Gaming, if you see what I mean, which would be very strange, especially for a guy like Seth Scumpy Abner, let's put it that way. So anyway, he says the following yesterday. I did go through this, but I thought I'd bring it up in this video as well because it makes sense. I've had enough of this. I hope you guys packed the other jerseys. Scump, Karma, DJ, Dashi, and even TP. And, his thinking is, they couldn't wear these jerseys because technically by the rules in the CWL, once you have one jersey set you're going to wear for at least that week, I think, or that season or whatever, then you have to keep wearing it. So in the league, they were wearing their actual proper jerseys, but I don't think they really want to represent them. And look, when the players are tweeting at the organization, tweeting something out, which is, this is a big deal for Optic Gaming as a brand. Of course, it's not really Optic Gaming, it's Immortals that are doing this from above, and they're keeping the Optic Gaming brand for the fan base or whatever, which, it makes sense. They're a business at the end of the day. But when you've got the players of the team that would be competing in Los Angeles and have just acquired a big spot, when they're tweeting things like this out to the organization, it's not a good look for them, and it's not a good look as to whether the players will even want to stay. And Crimsix says the following, he's not even trying to be remorseful or anything towards these Optic Gaming guys or whoever's running this Twitter account now. They're taking a pretty damn negative stance. And what's interesting is we have the following from Optic Gaming, came out yesterday. Thank you to the greatest Gears of War team ever. Per their request, we will be releasing the roster. We will miss the 17 times champs in Gears of War 4, at least. And, These guys, I'm pretty sure, just won the most recent events. They're like, whenever I watch Gears of War, don't really watch it that often, but whenever I do, this team is just undoubtedly the most dominant team in esports that I've ever seen. Spaceman said that maybe like Final Boss in Halo was more dominant back in the day, but I don't really know too much about that. Like, this is the most dominant esports team, at least of the modern era, I would suggest, and probably closely in front of the Optic team, the Optic Dynasty team from Infinite Warfare Black Ops 3 time, probably something like that. So definitely an incredible team, and they have decided that they want to leave the organization. They do not want to play for an organization that is owned by the people that is currently being run by. They'd prefer to play for an organization that is owned by, you know, the likes of Hector and people who really care about the players' interests, and clearly they're not happy with the organization as it is. And Hector says the following about them. He says, "Thank you, you're the definition of champion. You and the team brought great times and memories to our team. You and your team will forever be Optic. Anything you need, I got you. How about an organization, Hex, to go and play for?" Now, of course, people have been atting the guys like Explosive and Mental and the rest of the Gears of War guys. Like, you know, what about if you join 100 Thieves, for example? And, you know, that's not out of the question, right? But it would be very interesting to see. So this was a comment thread on Reddit that I just wanted to look at really quickly. This is what people's initial perspective was of, you know, Hector saying that this is not our Optic. So the roster of OG could potentially be free agent next season. This hurts. They'll probably go as a 5 to a new org, assuming they want to play together by the end of the season. You forget contracts exist, huh? Feel like their contracts probably expire after the season, and throw away 192490 says jackpot. Now I looked through Throwaway's tweet or his Reddit comments, and he seems to be more of like a fan than anyone who knows anything particular behind the scenes. But I think, you know, these Throwaway accounts have said these kind of things before, and obviously this is just like taking this as fact that the contracts expire after the season is obviously not fact. But I just wanted to say that that's a possibility. If the contracts do expire after the end of the season, which I'd not be surprised if they do, I think that the Optic guys have been in esports many years. They're pretty damn careful, I would say, as to how they organize their contractual relationships. Crimsix, of course, talked in a video relatively recently about the fact that you need to get yourselves like a lawyer to make sure to skim over your contracts to make sure there's nothing dodgy. He also said that when like Infinite Optic offered them their contracts, they were like 74 pages long or something ridiculous, and not signable really. You know, the shorter the contract, the better. I think he said that Hector's contracts are always like 15 pages or something like that. Infinite Esports ones were like 75, 80 pages. And when it's something like that, then you know that they're, you know, it's likely that they're trying to screw you in some way or another, you know. So the Optic guys, I'm pretty sure, understood that, and therefore I don't reckon they would have signed a particularly long-term deal, given this Infinite Optic stuff has been in the paperwork for a while. So if that is the case, and the contracts do expire at the end of the season, given the precedents we've seen with the Gears of War team deciding to leave Optic Gaming as a brand, will Optic Gaming, at least the current Call of Duty team, it's difficult to get everything in order, but will they decide to leave Optic Gaming as a brand as well? Of course, technically not Optic Gaming as a brand, they'll be playing for the Los Angeles whatever, but if they do decide to leave, that would be incredible, really, and it would be a huge loss to Optic. Now, of course, the real question is whether Hector can set up another organization and will try and get some sort of spot. I think it's pretty unlikely, to be honest, that Hector will be able to rile together some investors along with like Chris Cheney and these guys to get together an organization that can actually even potentially purchase a franchise spot. I think that's unlikely in the short term, especially given there's meant to be only like 12 teams. So maybe next year, if it goes up to 16 or goes up to 20 teams, then there may be some other teams that could potentially look at an Optic Gaming and think, or at least other squads that want to, other organizations that want to pick up this squad. That's the correct way to say it. Now, of course, pretty much every organization would want to pick up this squad, unless you had a completely dominant team, like let's say 100 Thieves are the purchasers of the next spot, and they bring their current team over. I can understand they don't want to drop their team for the Optic Gaming names, but pretty much any other team, I think, would heavily consider it, unless there are some big contracts in play. Of course, say a team like Envy, if they've managed to get Gunless contracted on a big term, and the same with if they bring back Hook, for example, they're probably not going to be wanting to drop those those players for the entire Optic team, but they may consider dropping some players and getting some of the Optic team. You don't know whether they will travel as a 5 to a new organisation, and of course we don't even know if the possibility of this draft is going to be coming into play either. In my opinion, it's kind of unlikely that'll be the case, but you never know, and it's difficult to say whether this team will stick together because we really don't know what's happening next season. A lot of people don't know what's happening. Things are going to be switched up dramatically. Even the people on the grounds, they don't really know exactly what's going on. It's the people at the top that understand and are making all these decisions as to how the franchise league is going to work, and well, we will just have to see. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this though. Will they leave? Would you follow them if they left? That's a really interesting question actually. Like, what if Scump as a player, because that's the thing about esports which kind of makes it different in my opinion to traditional sports. You know, in traditional sports, people follow their team. But in esports, because the teams tend to be smaller, I think the people follow a team, but they also follow players. And I'm sure a lot of your guys' favourite player is maybe Karma, maybe Scump, maybe, I don't know, Formal or something like that. And you may have followed them as a team. Say you're a Formal fan, for example. You may still like Optic Gaming as a team, and you may still like the teammates Formal used to have. But maybe your favourite team, because your favourite player is Formal, is now LG or something along those lines. I think that's more common in esports than traditional sports. Now, if this team was to be split up, if Scump was to be forced to go elsewhere, of course, the question is, would he retire in that case? You know, would they even decide to go to a new organisation? Would Scump retire and become a streamer? I think he is a player that could get away with it, definitely. Scump could do it. What did he have? Like 100,000 viewers for a 2K or something earlier on in the season, or at least 50,000. So it was ridiculous numbers. And he could definitely get by on that. But whether the other players could, of course, Crimsix, Karma, they've got loads of money in the bank, but if they retire from COD, like, where do they go next? Where is their job? And especially when you're still competitive, you're still competing for events, you're still winning events as they did earlier on in the season, difficult to say that they would even want to do that. So whether players will retire, exactly what will happen is a crazy situation. It's something that probably wouldn't have been the case if this acquisition never happened, if Hector never sold Optic Gaming the majority share to Infinite. Can't blame him, of course, because it solidified his place and it made sure he got enough money and it made sure he was allowed to talk to and, spend more time with his family and not spend as much time stressing about things. It makes a lot of sense as a decision. But of course, his decision, or at least the way that it has gone with Optic Gaming, has not worked out as well for him as it has for other organisations, the likes of Envy, likes of 100 Thieves, who have taken this capital investment, but the likes of Hastro and Nadeshot are still in very much a position of power within the organisation that Hector was not. So it's just unfortunate. If that hadn't have happened, we wouldn't have even probably been talking about this situation, but it is definitely on a lot of people's minds what will happen at the end of the season. Of course, they're going to play under Optic Gaming, it does seem, for Miami, and then of course World Championship, because the Optic Gaming brand still exists under Immortals, even if the Optic Gaming players don't particularly want to play under it. I don't really think they have much choice, to be honest. So at the end of the season, if their contracts do expire, then they can consider other options, leaving to other organisations, maybe even splitting up as a team. It depends how, of course, the last two events go. Because if they have, for example, a horrible Miami and Champs, they probably don't want to keep playing together. Like, let's say they do a top 24 or something, and, not going to happen, but let's say they did, like last year at Champs, then it's unlikely they'll go forward as a 5. And therefore, if that's the case, then we will be seeing some crazy stuff. Now, whether another organisation, because I'm sure these other organisations that have come in and purchased the franchise spots, they're looking at a few teams and they're thinking, okay, like which players are we going to try and get next season? What sort of caliber of players? Maybe if I'm Wise Ventures or whatever that's purchased the Minnesota spot, maybe I'm thinking, can I partner with an organisation that's currently in the league and so they can give me some insight on how Call of Duty works? Because if I'm an outsider, just come from normal sports, it'd be difficult to say, how... Am I going to try and pick and choose a team for team chemistry, or how exactly is that going to work? How much should I listen to the players, etc.? You probably need some input from an actual organisation to understand these kind of things. And if they do decide to partner up with another organisation, the likes of Wise Ventures, they may be thinking, okay, like what sort of caliber players are we looking at here? Are we looking at like the LG kind of teams? Are we looking at, Brack and Skies, these kind of level players? Or are we looking for the guys that are equally skilled, but also have a huge amount of background support and the likes of Optic Gaming, for example, as players? So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this down in the comment section below. I've rambled on for a long time. Thank you so much for watching as always, and like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always. I will see you next time.